The neighbors heard nothing. No screams, no struggle, not even the sound of a falling chair. But when Officer Miller stepped through the threshold of apartment 4C at 3:14 a.m., the smell of metallic copper hit him before the sight did. In the center of a perfectly set dinner table, between two plates of untouched pasta, sat a single blood-stained Polaroid camera. It was still warm. The flash had just gone off. But the person who took the photo was nowhere to be found, and the person in the photo was no longer alive. This wasn't just a murder. It was a curated gallery of horror. The date was November 14th. The setting was Oakwood Heights, a neighborhood where the most exciting event of the year was usually the annual gardening competition. It was the kind of place where people left their back doors unlocked and trusted their shadows. At the heart of this piece was Elena Vance, a 28-year-old freelance graphic designer known for her punctuality and her love for routine. Elena was the definition of ordinary in the best way possible. She had no enemies, no debts, and no dark secrets, or so everyone thought. On that Tuesday, Elena followed her usual pattern. She grabbed a latte from the grinded bean at 8:15 a.m., worked from the local library until 4 p.m., and was seen by her neighbor Mr. Henderson, carrying a bag of groceries into her apartment at 6:30 p.m. She smiled and waved, Henderson later told detectives, his voice trembling. She looked happy. Just a normal girl going home for a normal night. But inside apartment 4C, the atmosphere was already shifting. The air was getting heavy. Someone had been watching Elena for months, documenting her movements, learning the creaks in her floorboards, and memorizing the rhythm of her heartbeat. Imagine the scene. Elena is in her kitchen. The steam from the boiling water rises, fogging up the windows. She's humming a song, perhaps something she heard on the radio. She pours the pasta. She sets the table for one, or maybe she sets it for two, expecting someone who never arrived. Or perhaps someone who arrived uninvited. At 8:45 p.m. the power flickers. Just for a second. Elena pauses, looking up at the ceiling fan as it slows down. She shrugs it off as a faulty fuse. She doesn't see the shadows stretching across the hallway. She doesn't hear the soft click of the bedroom door locking from the inside. She sits down to eat. The silence of the apartment is absolute. Then, a sound. Not a loud bang, but a soft rhythmic scratching coming from inside the walls. Elena freezes. Her fork clatters against the ceramic plate. $F_gravity. Dollar seems to pull her heart into her stomach. She stands up, her shadow elongated by the dim candlelight she lit to cope with the flickering electricity. She moves toward the hallway. "Hello," she whispers. No answer. She reaches for the light switch, but the plastic toggle snaps under her touch. It's been tampered with. It's at this moment, the precise second she realizes she isn't alone, that the normal night shatters. The intruder doesn't rush her. He doesn't scream. He simply steps out of the darkness of her own bedroom, wearing a mask made of translucent latex, holding a vintage Polaroid camera. The flash goes off. The last thing Elena Vance ever saw was a blinding white light. When the police arrived hours later, tipped off by an anonymous breathing-only 911 call, they found a crime scene that defied logic. There was no forced entry. The windows were locked from the inside. The murder weapon was nowhere to be found, yet the cause of death was a precise, surgical incision that required expert anatomical knowledge. Lead detective Marcus Thorne noted 3 chilling details. The pasta on the table was still slightly warm when the first responders arrived, suggesting the killer stayed with the body for hours. The photo sitting on the table showed Elena not dead, but sitting in her chair, eyes wide with terror, a split second before the strike. And a record player in the corner was spinning a vinyl of white noise, just static played at a volume so low it was almost subliminal. The investigation pivoted to the inner circle. They looked at the ex-boyfriend, an architect with a penchant for precision. He had an alibi. He was on a flight to Chicago. They looked at the stalkerish coworker, but he had been in a minor car accident that night and was in the ER. The trail went cold until they found the void. In the crawl space above Elena's ceiling, police found a small nest. A blanket, empty food wrappers, and hundreds of photos of Elena sleeping. The killer hadn't broken in that night. He had been living there for 3 weeks. The depth of this voyeurism was staggering. Forensic teams found notebooks filled with Elena's daily schedule, down to the minute she brushed her teeth or turned off her bedside lamp. The killer had been breathing the same air as her, watching her through the small vents in the ceiling. A predator waiting for the perfect moment of total isolation. Just as the case was about to be labeled a cold file, a digital forensic expert unlocked Elena's smart home hub. It turned out Elena had installed a hidden pet camera to watch her cat while she was at work. The camera didn't record video to the cloud, but it stored 10-second motion clips on a local SD card. The final clip, recorded at 10:12 p.m., showed the killer removing his mask. The screen went blurry, but a face emerged. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't an ex. It was the anonymous 911 caller, the very paramedic who had tried to revive her when the police arrived. He had used his position to enter the scene, sanitize the evidence, and walk away with the most important trophy, the surgical blade. Further investigation revealed a terrifying pattern. This paramedic, identified as Thomas Rain, had been at the scene of 7 other unexplained deaths in the tri-state area over the last 5 years. In each case, the victim was a young professional living alone, and in each case, the cause of death was slightly ambiguous until a second autopsy was requested. Rain was a ghost in the system, a man who saved lives by day and meticulously extinguished them by night. His basement was a museum of stolen moments. Thousands of Polaroids, each one capturing the final spark of life in a victim's eyes. But even with Rain behind bars, the mystery deepened. During his interrogation, Rain remained eerily calm, almost bored. He didn't deny the killings, but he insisted he wasn't the director of the scenes. He claimed he was merely an operative for a group that traded in authentic experiences. Paramedic killer was eventually caught, but the Polaroid he took that night, the one of Elena's final moment of life, was never found in his collection. It is rumored to be in the hands of a private collector of dark memorabilia, a haunting reminder that our most private spaces are often the most vulnerable. Elena Vance's normal night ended in a nightmare that Oakwood Heights will never forget. But here is the question that keeps Detective Thorne awake at night. The motion sensor camera only triggers when there is a change in heat signatures. In the final clip, as the killer removes his mask, he looks directly at a corner of the room that was supposed to be empty. And he nods. Who was he nodding to? Was there a second person in that room, watching from the shadows? Someone the police never even looked for? Someone who might be watching you right now? The psychological toll on the community was immense. People who once felt safe behind wooden doors began installing steel bolts and high-tech surveillance. But as the case of Elena Vance proves, sometimes the danger isn't outside trying to get in. It's already inside, perched quietly above you, watching your chest rise and fall as you sleep. The paramedic killer was just one piece of a much larger, more terrifying puzzle that still hasn't been fully solved. To this day, the static on that record player in apartment 4C is said to contain hidden frequencies audio files of Elena's last words, encrypted into the white noise. This has been another deep dive into the dark case files. The world is a much smaller, much darker place than we like to admit. If you felt the chill of this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a descent into the unknown. What do you think? Was the paramedic working alone, or was Elena the victim of a much larger, darker conspiracy? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Stay vigilant. The lights might flicker tonight. Subscribe to Dark Case Files for more true horror.